I'm really happy to introduce and welcome Tom Henheffer from the Arctic Research Foundation. Hi, Tom. We met just a few months ago, maybe a month ago now, first, as you popped into the Annex location. And as Stefan said, you're not new to CSI, but the Arctic Research Foundation is new to CSI. So I think that's a great place to start. Can you tell us a little bit about the goals of the organization and your work there?
Sure. So I used to, first off, I used to have an office at CSI Spadina. So I think I've met a few of you guys before when I was the executive director at Canadian Journalists for Free Expression. But so now I'm the vice president at ARF. Basically, our organization exists to enhance science and indigenous and economies in the North through investment in infrastructure. And the form that that's taken so far is we've got 5 research vessels throughout the North, and some of them right now, because of COVID, are docked in Halifax and Victoria, but we've got 2 in Johaven, Nunavut, and 1 on Great Slave Lake in Hay River. And basically what we do is we go out and we conduct science. We've also got mobile labs, which are built out of recycled shipping containers, one of which is in Johaven, Nunavut, which is a very remote kind of fly-in community that has very little access to fresh produce. So it's our mobile lab has been converted into a green-powered, so wind and solar power, greenhouse, and is growing fresh vegetables, microgreens, tomatoes. We were planning on leading an expedition to collect traditional crops and herbs for tea this season, but that was stopped because of COVID. But we managed to keep, because we have a community first model, we go to communities and build relationships with them, and then ask them what they would like, how we can help. They told us they needed fresh vegetables, so we built this greenhouse for them, and they operate it with support from us and our partners in the National Research Council, the Agriculture Canada, the Canadian Space Agency, and it's still going strong and growing food. And then the other thing that we did this past summer is our vessel, the Nahidic, was kind of trawling around Great Slave Lake, mapping it for the first time. And the reason for that is because Yellowknife and most of the Northwest Territories is actually not on any kind of power grid. It's all run by diesel generators, which is expensive and messy. And so we're working to bring green power from hydroelectric dams in the south of the Northwest Territories by running cable through Great Slave Lake up to Yellowknife, which would put 70% of the population of the Northwest Territories on a power grid for the first time, and it would all be green energy power. So those are a couple of the projects that we're working on at the moment.
It's fascinating. The scale also, and I mean, the project's ambitions sound huge. I imagine working at this kind of scale, like you are, how many communities are you working in right now?
Well, at the moment, right now, only 2, really, because it's Johaven and the Nahidic. But we also have very close partnerships with Cambridge Bay, with Tuktoyaktuk, where we were filming. If you know of Tuktoyaktuk, you probably heard the permafrost is collapsing there, and they're not sure why, and the entire community is going to have to move. So we were up there because we also have a publishing platform at arcticfocus.com where we tell stories from the North and science, stories about science in the North. And so we were getting some footage of that to share to kind of raise awareness of the situation. But we're looking at what we want to do, and we're in talks with a number of our partners, is to build an entire network of mobile laboratories across the North, because there really is no infrastructure in most of our national parks, and very unreliable infrastructure in most of the small communities around there. So we're talking with Fort McPherson, with Tuktoyaktuk, with communities around Great Slave Lake, with other communities in Nunavut, about building this network of mobile labs and greenhouses, which can be used for climate change monitoring, as base stations for scientific expeditions, as art workshops for Indigenous communities, and hopefully as economic hubs for communities that really have, the infrastructure. So much of the housing and the building construction is so poor. And part of the reason for that is just because it's so damn cold up north. When it gets, most HVAC systems in Canada only work to minus 35. And when you're getting temperatures that can hit minus 60, they simply stop working. They completely freeze over, and then you get mold in the houses, which is part of the reason why there's this crisis with mold in the north. So all of these things are stuff that we're working on. The National Research Council is actually building a new HVAC system based off of our research in Joe Haven. So all of this good stuff. So we're operating all throughout the north.
That's amazing. You mentioned the Arctic in Focus project. Can you tell us a little bit about what the goal of that initiative or website is?
Sure. So yeah, arcticfocus.org is our website. It's the website for ARF, but really what it is it's a place where scientists who work in the north can share their findings, where they can tell stories from the field, what it was like on vessels, not just our vessels, but on vessels or out in the field in the Arctic. And we also tell the stories of, we hire as many Indigenous journalists. We have, I think, 5 freelancers right now working for the website. All of them are either Indigenous or Northerners themselves. And we get them and the communities where they work in to tell their stories, to share their mythology, to share their cultural practices. There's a beautiful article on there about Indigenous tattoo artists a few months back that's worth checking out. And really the goal is just to so many of these stories, there aren't places for Inuit and other Indigenous groups in the north to share their stories, and they feel rightly so underrepresented in the mainstream media in Canada. So we bring attention to those issues. We bring media coverage to those communities so these people can see themselves reflected in broader Canadian society. And we build both an audience of, it's a central place where people can see these stories from the north, which really didn't exist before, and where they can actually tell their stories.
I'm really excited by the merging of your background and knowledge in journalism and media, and this work in science and really community-focused development as well, because that representation is, as you say, so important, and not always available in these kinds of sectors in particular. So that's really cool to see. In terms of CSI, why did why did ARF come to CSI?
Well, I mean, partly for purely practical reasons, which is that by the nature of our work, our team is spread out across the country. Our CEO is in Winnipeg. Our digital editor is in Saskatoon. Our technicians are obviously in Joe Haven. Some of our captains are in Newfoundland, others are in Nova Scotia and PEI. So we're spread out all over the place. We have an office in Waterloo at the CG building, but I needed an office because I need to get out of the house. And I worked at CSI before and really liked the community. So I thought it would be a good place for me to work. But then more than that, I figured the community with so many organizations that work in human rights and green power and renewable energy and climate change, that there would be a really good opportunity to kind of network and find some synergies, to use the kind of bullshit corporate speak, if you'll excuse me. So part of the reason was for practical reasons, and the other was because I figured that we could be a benefit to the community, and the community could also help us.
So I am seeing a few questions being popped in the chat there. Our big one to you as part of the member moment is, how can the community support you in your work as a starting place?
Well, yeah, we're always looking for more, especially anyone who has had experience in the north, but also in the south. We're looking for people for partners with scientific expertise and ideas. Of course, like everybody, we're always looking for funding. Partnership opportunities, new ideas in terms of things that we can do for our technology or for our containerized growing projects, or even ideas in terms of publishing, people who might have stories to tell that they could share on Arctic Focus that would be relevant to that, anything like that. And any idea, I'm very open and approachable. So if anybody has anything whether I've mentioned it or thought of it or not, I'd love to talk and hear people's ideas.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Tom. I'm seeing Kevin Seeley, for example, is wondering about possibilities for high school students to join experiments in the North. So there are a number of organizations coming together here at CSI who might be interested in reaching out. So members, you can, as a reminder, find each other's contacts, message each other directly through the new common platform. So I encourage you to reach out to Tom if you have a potential area of partnership that you'd like to discuss. And Tom, thanks again for joining us. We're really, really happy to have you back.
Thanks for having me. And we actually we had high school students on the Nahidic. Usually we deal with high school students in the North, but that's certainly a possibility we'd like to explore as well. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks again. All right, I'll pass it back to you, Stefan.
Thank you so much.